So as we mentioned in the previous video, one of the things that we always need to consider with financial modeling is periodicity. And by that we mean the periods that are across the top in the financial model. For example, we can have annual models, quarterly models, or monthly models. In fact, we're going to start here right at the top with an example of a monthly model. Go through some of the date functions that we might use to construct a monthly model. So let's jump into it and get started. Now, the first function that we want to show you in this cell right here where it says current date is a function called the today function. We can just type in equals today like this, and then we actually open the bracket and close the bracket. So we're leaving the brackets empty, and we can hit enter, and what happens is today's date comes into this cell. Now, you may be seeing something slightly different in this cell. For example, if you're watching this video at a later date, then you will see a later date in this cell. The today function is an example of a volatile function. So a volatile function is a function which is constantly changing. And this particular function will constantly be trying to update. So if I open it tomorrow, it will show November 3rd, 2023 as the date. It's also possible that this date may look slightly different on your computer, depending on how you have the date settings configured. So keep that in mind as you're working through this particular chapter, that your dates may appear slightly different than our dates on this example. So this is an example of a date that will change, but underneath we want to hard code a start date in for the model. For example, in here, if you could go into this cell and put in 2024-01-01 and hit enter. So the model start date is intended to be January 1st of 2024. Now we want you to understand how dates work in Excel. So let's go over into this cell right here, cell E7. We're going to put in an equal sign, and we're simply going to link it to this date. Now let's hit enter. As you can see, it's linked directly to this cell, yet it's showing that what is actually in that cell is a number, 45,232. So what's happening with Microsoft Excel is each day it counts as a new serial number. So we're obviously at a large number right now, which makes you wonder, what exactly was day one? Well, in fact, day one in terms of Microsoft Excel was January 1st, 1900. Now, the reason that Excel converts dates to serial numbers is so that you can perform counting operations with them. For example, let's go back into this cell and suppose we wanted to calculate the number of days between this date here and this date here. We could simply go into the cell and say equals this future date minus this date here, and when we hit enter, we can see that there's 60 days between them, which is really helpful. So it's really helpful to know that behind the scenes, dates are really serial numbers. And the reason that they are serial numbers is so that we can perform addition and subtraction on the various dates, which is really helpful. Let's pop into this cell for now and just delete this out. Then in the next video, we're going to start to populate these cells right across here using some of the date functions that are available in Microsoft Excel. We'll see you there. So now that we have the model start date configured, we're in a position where we can get the headings working across the top of the model. One thing that we'll say here is it's really common to use the last day of each period. And the reason for this is when you see a financial statement like the balance sheet, the figures are always posted as of the last day of the period. So right here is going to be the first month of our financial model. And we want that first month to be January since the model's starting here January 1st. But we want it to show the last day of January. So there's a perfect function that we're going to use in here called EO month. It stands for end of month. So we're going to put in equals EO, and then we see it come up. So we hit the tab key like this. It wants to know two things. It's really simple. The start date, which is right here, and then we put in a comma. The number of months we want to go forward is actually 0 because we still want January. So let's put in a 0 there, close the bracket, and hit enter. So as you can see, the EO month or end of month function is perfect here. We're still in January, but it's gone to the 31st day, which is the last day. Now what we can do in this cell is build in another one, equals EO month like this, hit the tab key. We're going to set the start date as January 31st and then put in a comma and say we want to go 1 month forward, and then we can hit enter just like this. And now we have the last day of February. Now that we have this built to index forward by 1 month, it's perfect. So we can copy it forward through the rest of the forecast period. So let's go into the cell and do a copy, Control C. We can use the Shift key to highlight all the way across here. Now we don't want to paste everything or we'll mess up these nice borders. So we're going to use a paste special, Alt ES, or Control Alt V if you prefer. And now we go down to formulas and hit enter, and we've pasted the formulas perfectly through the forecast period. Now notice how careful we were that when we copied this formula forward through the forecast period, we only pasted the formulas. The reason that we did this was we wanted the formats to stay in place. If you look closely, you'll notice that we've put some effort into these borders. For example, we have a border here around Q1, and then another border for Q2, Q3, Q4, etc. This helps the reader visually see where each of the quarters are and makes the model look a little bit more professional. So I think you might agree that the EO month or end of month function is really efficient and just a perfect function for this purpose here, where we want to index forward through a number of months. Now in the next video, we're going to look at how to change the format of these cells just to make the labels look a little bit cleaner and a little bit more professional. We'll see you there. So what we're going to talk about in this short video is how to change the formats of these cells. We're not going to change anything about the content that's inside the cells. We're just going to get them to display a little bit differently. And this is referred to as custom number formatting. It's something that you're going to want to learn for sure because it's going to come up in so many places in Microsoft Excel when you're doing financial analysis. So let's think carefully about the format for these cells. We definitely want the month and the year to show, but it's not absolutely imperative that we have the day showing. It might be nice to have this first one just show up as January 2024, for example, or maybe January 24 to make it even cleaner. So here's what we're going to ask you to do. Let's go into this first cell and then hold down Control Shift and the right arrow to select all the way across. Now, if we were using the mouse, we would now right click and go down here and click on Format Cells. Brings up this dialog box right here, but in fact, there's a much quicker way to get into this dialog box. Let's tap Escape. In fact, the keyboard shortcut that we're going to use here is Control 1, which gets us into that dialog box right away. Now that we're into this dialog box, we're going to tap the Tab key once, and that's going to get us into this area here where we can go up and down. We're going to go all the way down to Custom. Once we get there, we hit the Tab key again, which gets us into this type box. Now we can hit the Backspace key to delete out what's in the type box. And what we want to put here is MMM for month, and then we can put a dash, and then we can put 2 Ys for year. And as you can see up here in the sample pane, it's showing that the first cell is going to display as January 24, which is really nice. Once we have that configured, we could hit enter and the format's been changed. So you can see already how this looks much cleaner across the top here and much more organized. Now, let's look really closely at what's happened. As you can see, March 24 is really close to the edge of the cell. For example, the 24 is right near the boundary there, whereas down here with these numbers, we have a little gap. Now we're going to investigate why those are different. So for a moment here, don't do this on your model, just watch what we're going to do. We're going to copy this number here, copy and paste it above. But we're going to change this number to a negative number. We're going to put a minus sign in front of it just like that. As you can see, these numbers are perfectly aligned. Now the way that we've been able to perfectly line up these commas is because the top number has a right bracket on the right, but the positive number here has an invisible right bracket. If you want to see how we've done the invisible right bracket, let's just hit Control 1 from this cell. You can see right over here, there's an underscore and then a right bracket. The underscore tells Excel that the next character is going to be invisible. So what we're going to do after deleting this is we're going to go up here and add that invisible right bracket just to get things aligned. So let's take a look at how we do this. It's really quick. We're going to select across all of these numbers, hit Control 1, which is our new favorite shortcut, and we're going to hit the Tab key twice to get into this type box right here, and all we're going to do is put an underscore and then a right bracket, which is inserting an invisible right bracket at the end of that date format, and then we hit enter. As you can see, it moves things over nicely so that they're aligned with these numbers below. So obviously it's not imperative that you put that invisible right bracket there, but it makes things look really nice because everything's perfectly aligned like this. And if you ever see underscore right bracket in number formats, you'll know that people are doing that to get the positive and negative numbers to line up to the right-hand side really, really nicely. Let's jump ahead to the next video now, and we'll talk about quarterly modeling and some of the date functions that we might use for quarterly modeling. We'll see you there. Now, one of the things that we've just finished doing is taking a legitimate date from this cell and doing some work with it to get the headings. What we want to do in this video is make sure that we understand how dates work. We want to be able to take a date, break it apart into its component pieces like year, month, and day. We also want to be able to take those component pieces and assemble them back together to get a legitimate date. Let's jump in and take a look. Now, with this previous example up here for monthly modeling, we started the model by inputting a legitimate date. But another way that you could start up a model would be to input the component pieces like year, month, and day. So let's do just that right here. Let's input 2024, enter, 1 for January and a 1 for the day. Now we want to adjust these formats. We don't need a comma separator here for thousands, and we'd also like to get the month and day to show 2 digits. So let's hop into this cell first, hit Control 1 like this. And we want to hit the Tab key and go all the way down to Custom, and then hit Tab again to get into the type box. Now we can hit backspace to delete it. What we want to do in here is type in 4 zeros, just like this, and that'll show up here as 2024. Let's hit enter to make that adjustment. Now, as you can see in this cell here, we've eliminated that comma for 1,000 separator, which is perfect. Down here, we'd like these to show as 0, 1. So let's highlight both of them and hit Control 1 to pop into the same place. Down to Custom, we hit the Tab key and delete what's in the type box. And here we'd like to put 0, 0. So it shows up here in the sample pane as 0, 1. Let's hit enter, and we've made that change as well. Now, it's our intention to leave these dates here hard-coded just like this, but we're going to take a little diversion here because we want to teach you exactly how to take a legitimate date like this one and extract the component parts like the year, month, and day. In fact, it's really easy. Let's pop into this cell here, and we're going to put in a year function, open the bracket, and then go up and connect to this date. As soon as you hit enter, you can see that year function pulls out the year. As you may have guessed, here for the month, all we're going to do is type equals month like this. Open the bracket and go back up to the same date. It extracts the month. Similarly here, we can say equals day, open the bracket, go up to this date, and we get the day. So as you can see in here, the year, month, and day functions make it really easy to extract those components individually from a date. Now you may already be wondering, how might we be able to reassemble the year, month, day into a date? Well, it's really easy as well. We're going to go in here and use a function called the date function, just like this, which is built exactly for that purpose. And then we just direct it to the year, comma, then the month, comma, and then the day. As soon as we hit enter, we get a legitimate date back, just like this. Now, we're really glad we were able to show you how to use the year, month, and day function to extract the components from a date, because you may encounter situations where you need to do that. But for our purposes here, we essentially want these 3 items to be hard-coded so that they can feed into the model start. So we're going to hard-code them back again now. 2024, enter, and then 1, enter, 1, enter. So these are now the inputs, and they're feeding into the date function right here. So now you can see how easy it is to take apart the components of a date and just how easy it is also to put them back together. So you can go either way if you ever run into those situations with your financial analysis. Now that we have the start date here for the model, let's jump ahead to the next video and we'll start populating some of the headings across the top for quarterly modeling. We'll see you there. Now that we have the start date set using the component pieces of year, month, and day, In this short video, what we want to do is use those to generate some headings that we can use for quarterly modeling. Let's dive in and take a look. Now up above here, we had set up our dates for monthly modeling like this, and we have them grouped into quarters. So we can see at the end of the first quarter, we have the date here of March 2024. And over here, we have the end of the next quarter, June 2024. So what we want is we want to have March 2024 appear right here, then June, then September, then December, just like this. And as you can see, we've set up these nice borders above so that we can group those into the first year. Now for this example, the EO month function is going to be perfect for our purposes here. We're going to go into the first cell and just type in EO and it comes up. We can hit the tab key. We want to grab the start date, which is right down here like this. And then we put a comma. Now the start date is in January and we want to go forward 2 months to get to March. So we're going to put a 2 in here and then hit enter. And you can see March 2024 come up like that. Now that we have that first date set at the end of March, we want to go forward in increments of 3 months to get a quarter. So we're going to go into the next cell and also do an EO month, hit the tab key, and the start date is going to be right here, but then we're going to index forward by 3 months and hit enter. Perfect, June 2024. Now that we have that set, let's copy and paste it throughout the forecast period. But remember, we can copy everything, but we only want to paste special, the formulas. So we're going to go into this cell, do a copy, Control C. We can see the cell blinking, so we know it's been copied. Now we use the Shift key to highlight all the way across to the end of the forecast period. And now we can go Alt-ES or Control-Alt-V to get a paste special. And now we tap the down arrow to get to formulas and hit enter, and that's done. So let's look through our work here. We have March 2024, June, September, December. So we have quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it repeats again, 1, 2, 3, 4 into this year. And as you can see just above, we have these really nicely grouped into years. So we can see 3 years of forecast grouped by quarters, and we're showing those groupings with those borders, which is a really nice feature. So as you can see in this example, the EO month function came in really handy once again. Let's jump ahead to the next video now. We're going to take a look at annual modeling, and you're going to see one of the reasons why it's so much more simple to get the headings working for annual models. We'll see you there. As you can see here, we're down in the annual modeling section of this particular worksheet. And as we mentioned earlier, annual models are incredibly simple and thus for this reason often preferred for financial analysis. One of the things that also makes them simple is the headings. In fact, we're not even going to use real dates here. We're just going to use numbers. Let's jump in and take a look at just how simple it is. So as you can see here, we have a starting place for the year, and we can just input 2024 like this. And now that's going to set us up nicely to start these headings up here. In fact, since the first year of the forecast is going to be 2024, let's just link this cell over to the start year, just like this. Now, as you can see in here, we have that comma separator popping up for thousands, which we don't need. We're going to change. The other thing that we want to do is if we look closely at the alignment, we can see here there's a nice little space with a right-hand bracket, and we want to put a similar space into here so that everything's aligned really nicely. Let's highlight all the way across here like this and hit Control 1 so we can get into Format Cells. Using the Tab key and the down arrow, we can get to Custom, and the Tab key once more, we can get into here. Now what we want here is 4 zeros in a row like this, and then we put an underscore in, which tells Excel to make the next character invisible. For that invisible character now, we're going to put a right bracket just like this, and then we can hit enter. Now this has cleaned things up really nicely for us. No more comma separator, and as we can see, we have nice alignment to the right-hand side with a little space in there. Now, as we mentioned earlier, we're not even using dates. Remember, this is just a number. So all we're going to do to get the next year is just pop into here and say equals this one plus 1. We hit enter, and we get 2025. Now we're just going to do a copy and highlight all the way across using the Shift key. And we want to do a paste special. So Alt-ES or Control-Alt-V brings us up, down arrow to formulas, and then we hit enter, and that's all done. Really nice. So as we can see, we have a nice forecast period that goes forward in terms of the years. We're just using numbers. These aren't even dates. In fact, this is one of the things that makes annual models so simple. There's many other things that make annual models really, really simple. And in fact, this is the reason why when you're doing financial analysis, you should always default to an annual model, unless there's a very compelling reason why you would need a quarterly model or even the granularity of a monthly model. You're going to find that the annual models are so much more simple, can allow you to focus on the financial analysis that you're doing. Let's jump ahead to the next video. We're going to look at some debt payments and introduce another date function, which is really handy for those payments. We'll see you there. As you can see here, we're down in the section for debt payments. And the unique thing about debt payments is they often occur always on the same day of the month. So the functions that we've used up until now, in fact, won't work for us. We're going to introduce a new date function to you, so you have another one in your skill set to be able to use if you encounter this situation with debt payments, like mortgages or corporate debt. Let's take a look. So the first thing that we want to do in here is set up our first payment date. We're going to set that up as 2024-0101. So it's going to be January 1st, 2024. Now we want to think about the frequency of these debt payments. And if we're thinking about the example like mortgage payments, for example, we would be paying those every month. So let's put in a frequency here of 1 month. And later on, we're going to fix the formatting of this particular cell. But for now, let's just leave it as is. Now, just to get us started, we can put the first payment right into this particular cell here for the heading. And we just want to link this down to this first payment date right here and hit enter. Now let's pop over into this cell here where the second heading is going to go and just type in eDate like this. And I know what you're probably thinking. Finally, a place where I can set up an online dating profile and meet some other Excel enthusiasts. Fortunately, it's not that, but it's almost as exciting. What we're going to do with the eDate function here is we're going to put in the start date right here, and then we're going to say, comma, for the number of months, instead of hard coding a 1 like this, what we want to do is use the cursor to go down and select the frequency here. We're going to tap the F4 key to lock that cell down, and then we can hit enter. Now, the great thing about the eDate function is that what it's done is it's indexed 1 month forward, but it's kept the same day of the month, which is perfect for this application. So let's pop in here, do a copy, Control-C, highlight across with the Shift key to the end, and Alt-S, or Control-Alt-V for a paste special, down to formulas, and hit enter, and that's all done. So as you can see, this particular date function has been perfect for this application. It can index forward by a certain number of months and always keep you into that first day. Sometimes corporate debt payments are on the 15th day of the month, and you can index them forward to always be on the 15th day. Really handy. Let's jump ahead to the next video and clean up some of the custom number formats that we see here so we can get those looking really professional. We'll see you there.